Welcome to Dad Save the Internet, the only live internet podcast show thingy with two brothers and dads applying ancient wisdom to modern problems in real time. I am
Yeah, that's what
Brandon
we do.
Wilborn. That is what we do, or at least we're trying. I am Brandon Wilborn, husband, father, author, serial entrepreneur, and chronically curious epistomophiliac. New word I learned this week.
Epistomophiliac. Well, that's a mouthful. And how do I follow that? And I'm Dennis
It means I
Wilborn.
like to learn things.
Is that I figured that part. Epistomophiliac. Yeah, you name it. That's my brother. And I'm Dennis Wilborn. I'm a God-loving husband, a father, an entrepreneur, coach, and incessant encourager. So keep up the good work.
Incessant encourager. I like the
I am,
alliteration there.
and it's and incessant. So what is what's our question of the day, bruh?
I don't know about question of the day, but I just thought we'd start off saying it's back to school time, folks.
Oh my gosh.
And
In
all of us are
America.
dealing with that. So, what was your kind of biggest memory or most standout memory for you for back to school, brother?
Stand up memory from back to school. Mm, I don't know. I try to block all those memories. I hated school. I did. I was just
You
like,
hated school. All right.
Yeah, I hated school. Yeah. School sucked. Um, yeah, that way to drop that one on me. I wasn't expecting that
Oh,
at
oh.
all.
So no like serious
How about you? I mean,
memories
yeah,
of
I
back
mean,
to school.
the only memory I have of going to school was actually like I shouldn't say the only memory I have of going to school. Like the worst memory I can tell you, the one that sticks in my brain the most is the one when I was like I don't know 3 or 4, going to the daycare, which in my mind, in my memory, was like a prison. It had big brick walls, big tunnels made out of bricks, and big bars, so I couldn't get out. I remember screaming my head off. I bet
Wow.
my mother our mother would probably say, "Yeah, I remember that. You cried like a
That
baby," which I,
that might explain some things.
yeah.
Mine, I think mine is probably the most recent time I went back to school was going back to seminary. I mean, recency obviously makes it easier to remember because I was an adult. But I just
I was a
remember
grown up.
there was a get to know you potluck type thing barbecue that the school put on, and
Uh-huh.
it was really this surreal experience because our father was cruising around looking for my bride to be at this barbecue. and
Oh
and had the
yeah,
attitude very much
I
of
remember those
yes,
days.
go to seminary and meet the father of my grandchildren. I'm sorry, the mother of my grandchildren.
Mother, I was gonna say what?
And
Well, it
I
was a California school, so you
oh
never
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Mm.
but it was he wasn't wrong. I did meet the mother of his grandchildren, and
And a
happier
great
for it.
sister-in-law too. I'm really happy to have the new sister in my life. So,
Well, thank you, thank you.
uh-huh.
It's yeah.
Thank God. I
It,
mean,
I mean, hey,
about
if
time.
you are a young man looking for a good woman, seminary is, as Dad used to say, a target-rich environment. Not sure it's quite as
Spoken like a true naval aviator.
not sure it's quite as fair for the
Target-rich
young ladies
environment.
because
Sheesh.
there's more guys usually. But yeah, definitely a lot of weddings and marriages and things like that go on to the seminary.
Well,
All
yeah, and
right.
when you went to seminary, weren't you in like some kind of a dorm? Not a dorm. What was it? You had like married couples housing. It was cool. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what?
Once we
Shut
were
the front
married, we
door.
moved into married couples housing,
Mm-hmm.
which was a big step up from when my in laws lived in married couples housing because they had a studio. We got a 1 bedroom. So
Nice. Now, I remember
all
I
right,
stayed. I think I slept on your couch once. All right. What's
that's a fun
yeah.
memory.
So
If you're
hey,
still
look.
with us, folks,
Yeah.
maybe you want to join us on this adventure as men and husbands and maybe dads. And we invite you to subscribe. I have it on good authority that if you hit that subscribe button, you get free cookies. Please leave a comment or a question
Still
or
waiting for
drop us your own nugget of wisdom in there, and we might just put it on part of the next show.
maybe
So,
so, or yeah, maybe so.
maybe, possibly.
Could be. Could be.
Let's
Could
move
be.
on to our first segment for the day, brother.
All right. Our first segment here.
Word to the wise.
A word to the wise. What is our word for the day? Hey, did you
There
know
it is.
There it is. I know. I said, did you know that one of our most famous American authors, uh, Mr. Samuel Clemens, did not have a formal education beyond elementary school? I mean, everybody quotes and misquotes Samuel Clemens, also known or better known as Mark Twain. He was called the father of American literature. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
By
yeah,
another great William Faulkner.
by another American literary great. Yes.
Literary great.
William Faulkner. Hey, I had to
You got to
throw
be
that one in
careful how
there.
you say that name.
Yes. Mark Twain. He's got several famous quotes, and we will be talking about one in particular. Maybe you've seen this one, maybe you haven't. And it goes a little something like this: I've never let my schooling interfere with my education. Hmm.
What's he mean by that, brother?
What does that mean? Never let your schooling interfere with your education.
Well, obviously, he means that there's a difference between the two.
Well, I think obviously, God, I mean, I got all flustered there for a second. Um, well, it's quite obvious this day and age, especially, that there is a big difference between the things you learn at school and the things that you're educated, the education that you get from your life. I think that's really what it boils down to.
Yeah.
You're learning things all the time. You're being educated by life. I mean, life is a great teacher. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Um,
And he said a lot of other things about schooling, some of which were pro school, some of which were anti school. But he was
I only read
definitely
the
a big
anti-school stuff.
proponent. What was he like the anti school stuff? He was definitely a big proponent of training. He thought that training was what could really transform a life, and that training and education were different, or training was the effect of educating someone. Like you would train for education. Maybe I reversed that. Education was the effect of training. That was what actually changed.
Education was the effect of training. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that
absolutely.
was what actually
And
changed you.
mhm.
And he thought that, I mean, he talked about it in kind of very agricultural, homey terms, saying things like, training can do anything. Training can can kind of make people become something different. So he's talked about as a kind of a joke that the was it a peach? The peach started off as a bitter almond because peach seeds kind of look like almond seeds, or
Yeah.
the entire shell and
See, now
everything.
if he had finished elementary school, he might have known that it didn't really start off as a bitter almond.
But that's why I think he did know, because he lived at a
Because
time when agriculture was a big deal.
of course, of course, of course. Yeah, you may always making excuses. No,
So
yeah.
I do think though that we can take this little nugget of wisdom and say for ourselves, don't stop at schooling.
Yeah,
Always
definitely. I
continue
mean,
your education.
yeah, and that's one of the biggest things that I see on a constant basis. I've known many people in my life who they go to school and then they just stop. It's like,
Hmm.
what are you doing? Like, I know even in my career today, teaching and coaching people with English, so many people come to me and say, "Oh, I need help with my English. I took the test and I scored a really high score years ago, but now I don't remember anything." I said, "Well, have you studied or used it at all?" No. Well,
Oh,
there you go. You can get a high
yeah,
score on a test, but it doesn't mean that you know anything. So
yeah,
that's really
yeah,
what it comes down to.
yeah.
You
And I
got to
think
use it.
what's interesting is we talk about wisdom. This is going to be my last word on this before, because we do need to move on. But as we talk about wisdom, the Hebrew idea of wisdom that we read about in like Psalms and Proverbs and things like that is not just knowledge. It is
Hmm.
not esoteric, man on the mountaintop stuff. It's practical. So the farmer who knew when to plant was the one who could be wise. And the
That's right.
fool was the one who didn't plant at the proper time, for instance, as an example. Looks like we got a comment from our dad.
Yeah.
Remember the role of
Remember,
parents and grandparents in education. Huge, Huge.
It is a huge responsibility. It's huge. It's huge.
Huge responsibility.
It's hugest. It's the hugest responsibility ever. Yeah, that's
So,
right, Dad.
I think as we're talking today about back to school being the kind of the theme with this education and schooling idea, let's explore that further because we're dads and we're trying to talk about being dads, but also how we push this onto our kids. Not push it on, but yeah. Come on, kids.
Push it.
Let me
Let's
shove
push
this
it onto
down your
our
throat.
kids. But before we do,
Before we do,
a word from our sponsor. Me. Mark Twain was also famous for saying, I was reading the wrong script there. Geesh. If you don't read newspapers, you are uninformed. If you do read them, you are misinformed. And I think that is probably true. But at least you'll be well read. And it's been my long personal held belief that reading the news is one of the best ways for a language learner to pick up a language fast. It doesn't matter if you're trying to learn English or any other language. Reading the news in the language you're trying to learn is a great way to improve quickly. That's why I coach my students on how to read the news in the most efficient way possible in order to maximize their learning. And so my students who are consistent with their reading, and they all report that their fluency and comfort level increases and improves within a week, or within a few weeks, I should say, within a week. And they don't have to slog through their boring textbooks or try memorizing their vocabulary that's so quickly forgotten without any context. So if you or someone you know is looking to improve their English for business or conversations, check out my Instagram page, all about English learning. There is an underscore between each word, where you can use the link in the bio, and it'll take you to my amazing talker profile where you can book a trial lesson, not free, unless, of course, you follow me on Instagram. Let me know, and you'll get it for free.
I do believe if you go to Instagram and just search all about English learning, it will show up without the dashes in there, correct? I believe.
Probably.
Right.
But if you really want to make sure, I mean, you can't miss it.
There are
smiling mug is on there. You can't miss it. There
are a lot of accounts
actually, no,
that
I don't
try
think
to
I'm
fake
smiling
other
in that
accounts. So, all right, thank you, brother.
Thank you. All right, let's talk about
I'm
it, bro.
saying that a lot more than I usually do. We've been called out.
We've been called out.
How do you know it's your dad?
Yeah, that's true. It could be mom. It does say the adventures of
mom.
Michelle and Dennis. That is a good point. I mean,
well, whichever one of you it is.
Oh, what time is it in Hawaii?
Keeping us straight. It's early. It's early in Hawaii.
It's early.
Not as early as it is.
Not as early as here
for you.
Yeah. I'm in the future, man. I'm in the future. I'm in the next.
You're in the future.
Yeah, buddy. Future.
Yeah, that's right. You're tomorrow.
I'm in the tomorrow that you are dreaming about.
Speaking to someone from the future through the magic of the internet.
The magic.
Lucky me.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
All right. Well, let's move on to our first segment here, and we are running on behind. But faith and education.
Right. We're having fun.
So we talked about our 5 Fs and our 5 arenas. I think we should get away from the 5 Fs since somebody else came up with that idea. We'll just call it 5 arenas. But faith is the first one.
Happened to start with F.
Yeah, 5 arenas that happen to start with F.
Really rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Now I have to rethink my entire life. So, how do these things apply to education? I think was what we'll talk about today.
Yeah.
Faith. Where does faith come in and impact education or schooling?
Well, unlike you, brother, I did not go to seminary. But at the same time, I don't count myself as a lesser man because of it. I think that I know, I'm just kidding. But no, I think that the Bible, the Holy Spirit, is the Bible says that the Holy Spirit is a great teacher and educator, and will take us through many stages in our life if we are in tune, if we're tuned into the Holy Spirit. I mean, I, I got some crazy stories about being guided by the Holy Spirit. Like, for example, uh, you know, I remember God said he was going to take me on a masculine journey and kind of father me through things that I'd never experienced. And this was in my 30s. And I'm going, okay. And it was minuscule, what would be thought of as minuscule tiny things, like learning how to shave with a straight razor, or learning how to ride a
I
horse.
remember those days.
Yeah, my skin does
For you.
too.
I don't remember them
Yeah,
myself because I've never done
it
that.
was bloody. But once you get the hang of it, it's the closest shave you ever had.
I remember all of the paper towels stuck to your face.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's a learning curve. Yeah, that's for sure. But the point being that when you allow the Holy Spirit to guide you into different educational experiences, you get experiences, you learn how the world works, you learn how God works, you learn how life works, that things that you could never learn in school. I mean, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. I do think there's certainly, I know I see it on social media quite a bit with even some friends, a perception among people that if you believe the Bible, or if you are a Christian religious person of almost any sort, but particularly Christian, that you are against education, or you are against schooling to some degree, because they have come to associate that with rigid doctrine that you have to believe or else. And I think that it's a mischaracterization. It's a caricature of Christian, because there are lots of Christians who are highly educated, not just in Scripture. I was looking at today at because this is what I do, because I'm an epistemophiliac. I was researching DNA, for instance, and I'm not at a deep level, but just looking at the people who were involved in the process. And there was an article saying, well, Watson and Crick wouldn't have fully discovered DNA if it weren't for the work of this woman who had died a little bit early, so she couldn't win the Nobel Prize. But there was also a nun who did work with the equipment in teaching how to use the microscopy that they were using at the time. It was fairly new. And she was teaching and creating manuals and things for that. And she actually did some chemistry work that revealed that there was a helix as part of DNA. So even with that, there was somebody religious doing that beforehand. But you look at the fathers of most of the sciences, and they were, or the fathers or mothers of most of the sciences, and they were people, Madame Curie, for
of
instance,
faith. And no, it's true.
Faith.
They were people of faith. And I think even today.
The reason was because they were, they had a firm belief that God had made the world something we could figure out. And so the entire scientific method is not possible without an assumption that there is an order to the world. And that there are plenty of scientists, like I think you were about to say today, who have come to faith through science and maybe lost their faith as they started, but came back to faith. My favorite guy to listen to right now scientifically is James Tour, who's a microbiological chemist or something like that. Got some great videos on YouTube.
Microbiological. Okay, cool.
Yeah, he makes molecular machines.
Molecular machines?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really awesome. Cool
stuff. But like hard science. So there's no reason to say that faith and education don't go together. And I think faith can drive us towards a path in schooling, but more importantly, the passion to pursue life and figure out the world that God has made, regardless of your field.
Sure. Well, I mean, look, even the Bible says that God made things in a certain order, and in a certain way. I've been reading a lot of the Old Testament. Well, I read the whole Bible all the way through the years, so I've been in the Old Testament and a lot of prophets. Yeah, God says flat out, there's an order to the universe, and uh, you know, the only way. Um, Shoot, I can't remember what I was reading the other day. It was somewhere in Ezekiel. It said, "You want to know how you know that you can trust me? Um, the 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 laws of physics basically will stop working before I quit on you." So
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah,
I would
so basically, yeah.
I
Or
would
it
I
wasn't
would
laws of it, the laws of
encourage.
nature. I think he said the day and the night will come before each other, or something like that. Look, like I said, I didn't go to theological school, seminary.
It is good to remember some things. I know you referenced Paul last time, but it was really Hebrew, so we don't know if it was Paul. But that's the kind
Whatever.
of detail you get when you're have a
That's
degree,
what happens. See, that's why you pay the extra money to go get the degree.
so
Anyway,
you don't
let's move
accidentally
on.
slip up. All right, I just want to throw out one potential challenge. If you are a person who either struggles with the concept of faith and education or faith and schooling being mutually beneficial, you are going to miss out on most of Western culture because whether you're a believer or not, the Bible has influenced the West in our art, in our laws, in our politics, in our morality, in our ethics, all, and again, in science. And so if you at least go read it, you will be more educated and you'll be able to see all of the connections that drive our culture. And that is good for you. All
That's
right,
true. That is
moving
true.
on.
It's good for you. Good stuff.
Family and education.
Family and education. Why don't you take this one, bro?
Oh, man. Making
No,
it hard
I
here.
mean, I've got. I tell you.
Oh,
Speaking of
okay.
family, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think that in my mind, as I think about family and education, is obviously that's the beginning. We talked about family being the foundation for relationship as a concept last week, but I think it's also that is part of the education. It is within the family where you are meant to develop basic skills like speaking and walking and taking care of yourself, feeding
Talking.
yourself, all
Mm-hmm.
those fun things. But also, a family is where you learn, hopefully, the skills of being a good citizen. You learn how to be kind. You learn how to be considerate of others. You learn how to deal with conflict, hopefully in a healthy way. But I know we don't always have that. So even if it's unhealthy, family is where it all starts. And so as we go back to school, I think that the family, it should be a unit that works together towards everybody's betterment and everybody's education. And as dads, that's something we can definitely influence and lead in. And I think probably the stereotype is that it's mom that's pushing the schooling side. And
Yeah.
you know what, dads, let's step up. Let's be the ones who are having those conversations that matter with our kids about school and beliefs and what's right and wrong and how to deal. Back up our kids when they have problems at school. Help them out and kind of be the ones who are leading in that. And then show
Yeah.
them what you're learning too.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Always. I agree with you 100%. Let your kids see you learning. I
Mm.
mean, we talked about never stop learning. Well, I talk about never. Did we talk about that? I don't know.
I think it got
You
mentioned.
shouldn't. It might. Yeah, it might have got mentioned. Yeah, but when we, as a father, make sure your kids see you learning, because it's gonna push them, or it's gonna inspire them to learn as well. I'm a homeschool guy. I'm a firm believer in homeschooling, and everybody's got their personal take on that. But um, some people are firm supporters, some people not. I mean, we can have a whole episode about homeschooling if you want to. But even if you do send your kids to school, now I do send my kids to a preschool part time. They're in a Christian preschool, so that they can get uh, mostly so that my wife can have a little break with the baby and give me a chance to work. But um, nevertheless, we still spend the time and doing schooling at home, because or not schooling, education at home. We do, because honestly, when children are growing up, I mean, for thousands of years, they've learned from their family
Mm-hmm.
first. Most, I mean, that's the biggest thing.
Right.
And I look at it like this. Someone once said, look, we have a responsibility as fathers and as parents to make sure that we deliver our children to the world as adults, healthy. I mean, think of it as a product, as a business person. I'm thinking of it like a product. Our job is to deliver this child healthy to the world. So, not overweight, not with too many extra holes, maybe a couple in the ears if you're into that kind of thing.
A few extra holes are
Not,
okay.
yeah,
Not too many.
Not with any deformations from accidents, not with tattoos. You want to do that as an adult, you go right ahead and do that. But it's my job as your dad to make sure that you're delivered the way God designed you to be. So that's my goal.
Wow, man, you've hit a couple of things here that I wanted to comment on. I do feel like we had this discussion a little bit before, that if you are going into a public school, certainly the social perception is that, among a lot of people I've known in my past, is that they are going into an indoctrination factory.
Yes. No, I mean, yeah, that's a fact.
I think so. There is an idea that, yeah, there's going to be a product coming out of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you as a dad, even if that is the choice you're making, you have influence over that.
Yep.
You can do that. And I do feel like, so like, for instance, we are sending our kids to a charter school. It's a public charter school, but man, we are watching it like a hawk because of the social issues, because of the moral things that our culture is trying to put into the educational system that we disagree with as Christians. We have to watch it like a hawk. So our responsibility, even if you delegate some of that education, some of that schooling for the basic stuff, our responsibility is still to do what you just said, to raise them up to be good citizens, hopefully God-loving. So far they are, and
yeah,
and all the rest that we talked about. Yeah. But I think you can't get away from the idea that regardless of which direction you go, you're the one responsible to make sure that they get as full of an education as you can deliver in 18 years.
Yeah.
And then hopefully they develop at least a love for learning. I think the richest man in Babylon this always runs in my mind. There's a line about, we learned that there were two forms of education: the knowledge about the world and the facts of the life, and the ability to learn how to know different things, or how to learn something new. If you don't know how to learn something new and how to think about things, your education's incomplete. So go with that too.
Well, I think that should be the primary thing. You should be learning how to think about things, and unfortunately, I don't think that most schools are providing that. Yeah. And now I'm not saying homeschooling is perfect, because obviously every homeschool is different. I think it should require, if you're going to get into homeschooling, it should be a cooperative approach and all that stuff. But I think that education with regards to the family and stuff like that, I think that leads us into fitness very well, because fitness not as a physical thing, but as a form of preparation.
Okay? Yeah, we talked about fitness as readiness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, readiness. Yeah,
and I think that applies greatly. Now, I do think that there's a physical factor as well, because one, lots of people learn things physically.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
that's, in fact, there's plenty of ancient people who would have said you learn by doing. And I think that is true.
I still say you learn by doing. That's why I tell people to read articles and read it out loud, because you put it into context. But I mean, as a mariner, when I went to school, you learn by in the classroom, but you also spend the time on the ship, working the ropes, learning the ropes, as the expression goes, and which is a nautical expression, by the way. It comes from back in the wooden ships, when ships were wooden and men were steel or something like that. I forget what the iron. Yeah, there it is.
Salty.
Salty. So my mother was a mermaid, and my father was King Neptune. Arr. But no, you learn by doing and by actions, is one of the best ways that we do learn. And so there is a physical element, right? But the now I've lost my train of thought. We're all about being made ready, being prepared, and I am caught flat-footed, unprepared.
All right. I think I think we're in similar mind space here, that the education, a full rounded education, man, I have a big face now. A full rounded education is one in which we see the gaps that maybe our schooling or our other training has left, and we take responsibility personally, either as parents or as individuals, to say, you know what, I'm lacking in that area. I'm going to go learn what I need to learn to be able to fill out that gap. And if there is, if there's a weakness, we do what we can to strengthen it. If there's a strength, maybe we play to it for a while. But it's that knowing how and when to think and being ready as much as we can. Hey, we were both scouts long ago when the scouts were scouts.
Be prepared.
And
the motto.
Be prepared was the
yeah.
I believe it still is the motto, but I am not sure what they're preparing for these days.
Yeah, boy was also part of the title before too. So I mean, things change. Man.
Yes. Well, you were a Sea Scout.
They're just scouts. I was a Boy Scout before I was a Sea Scout, and I was a Cub Scout before that. So.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know. Oh boy.
But I think you throw in that physical readiness, physical fitness, and so the education side comes into sometimes. I don't know how to do this thing. Let's go learn.
Yeah,
on the physical side,
and
sometimes it's I am inadequate in this thing. Let's push ourselves to get better. That's a full education.
Yeah, and work together with each other. Or find someone who can teach you. Find a mentor. There's all kinds of things you can do. I mean. It's like when I was learning how to ride a horse. I didn't understand what that was about, but God said, go learn how to ride a horse. Okay. And it taught me a lot about control. It taught me a lot about faith, and guidance, but really it gave me a skill that I will never forget. It's not like riding a bike. Well, maybe it is like riding a bike, but first of all, it hurts a lot more when you fall off, though. Oh, let me tell you,
you are higher up. So. Maybe those old timey bikes with the one big giant wheel.
Yeah, right.
That would probably about be equivalent there.
Can you imagine?
So you don't get kicked. I think the last thing as far as readiness goes in this area is, man, I just made a joke and lost my own train of thought there. But the last thing as far as the readiness goes is that these things go together. And I think one of my favorite things about learning, especially learning something new, is taking something that I already know and seeing where there's overlap, or seeing something that's new and going, oh, hey, this makes more sense. So for instance, I learned more about English grammar studying other languages than I did in English class. Because it was you weren't using it as much. It was just, here's the rules, here's how to do it, and you did a few tests or in a few examples, and you're kind of tentative on how you understand it. But then you take and you see, oh, this other language uses these rules similarly but different, and you get to go, oh, okay, so now I understand this better by contrast. So sometimes that overlap or that distinction is really helpful as you become more ready.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right.
And move on.
I think we're almost on track to be on time.
We're in finances.
We talked too much.
Sorry. Got excited. I got excited there. Sorry. We're in finances. I'm so excited. All right,
go for it. The floor is yours, my brother.
The floor is mine. Excuse me. No, I mean, I get so excited about financial education. Financial education. If there's one thing that is probably lacking in school, is financial education. One of the biggest things. I mean, there's a lot of things lacking in school. Don't get me wrong, and I think that many people are discovering that now as the world goes into like this financial chaos all around the world. People are going, "Whoa, what's going on? What happened to
Mm.
my paycheck? What happened to my pension? What happened to
Why is it
the
bad to give everybody free money again?
security? Yeah, what happened to the security that I once thought I had?" And so having a financial education is really, really key to, yeah, to growing and getting stronger and as an individual. So um
Okay.
no, I mean, think about it. If you want to have, I mean, we're going to get to freedom in a minute, but if you want to have freedom, you've got to have the
Mm.
finances in order, right?
That's yeah.
And if you put all of your faith in your finances, which is wrong, that's in the wrong order, um, and then you have no financial education, then
Mm.
you're just like a house built on sand. You're about to crumble. As soon as things get rough, it's going to go.
Yeah.
So I really like Robert Kiyosaki. I listen to his radio show quite often. I talk about it with one of my students quite often, and he's gotten really salty. Speaking of salty, and as he gets older, man, whoo, I love it. Um, because he calls communists what they are, and
He's been
and
hitting things pretty hard. I did listen to one of his podcasts recently, and he was talking about the way he phrased it was they're communists. They may not know they're
yeah,
communists, but they're espousing communist things, so therefore
yep,
they're communists.
yeah,
It was an interesting
yeah,
perspective. It was a very
exactly.
frank perspective that you don't often get.
Hmm.
I think we
Yeah,
we oftentimes, as far as education goes, being aware of the ideas that have influenced you and where they come from is a really important thing. And that goes if you if
but that
you
goes
don't
against the
know where
tenets of
you're
communism, which is
right.
all about ignoring. Don't no pay no attention to what's really happening here. We don't want you to see what's going on behind the curtain.
If you don't know where your financial ideas come from,
Oh yeah, you're in trouble.
that is one
You're
of
in
the most
trouble.
practical hit you in the face things that's going to happen of all of these. If
Oh
you don't
yeah,
know
I
where,
mean,
I mean,
it's
same thing with health. If you don't know where your health
yeah.
information is coming from, or you don't understand some of it, like that'll affect you directly too. But the financial
No,
one is
sure.
the one we can look at. And yeah, the schooling is important, but this is one where you really have to be responsible for yourself.
Hmm.
Is good with the
Hmm. Yeah.
finances. Did you want to make a comment on this comment down here?
Well, no, I was just gonna say. I mean, that I think that the old silver fox over here has got he's got it right on the money.
Silver
The silver fox, he's got wait until inflation hits 25% in the next 18 months. Yowza! I think that's a good point. Wait until inflation hits. Although some people say it might already be close to there already, but they changed the way they count it back in
you
the
you
1980s.
can you can go look. I think one the one that gets referenced a lot is shadow stats, and you can see
Hmm.
how they give you here's how they counted it back in the 80s, here's how they counted it in the 90s, I believe, and here's how it's counted
Hmm.
now, and you get a
Yeah.
very different picture of the health of things. And inflation
Or
is only
lack
one
thereof.
one aspect of that.
Hmm. Yeah, but
So
we're not in a recession, and we only
quick,
had 0% inflation last year,
and if
last month.
financial
Excuse me, last
education really matters, go learn how to use a dictionary. Quick idea on this one, just from a practical perspective. Education is costly, regardless of how you get it.
Yeah,
It costs
yeah,
time,
that
it
and that's a
costs
good point.
money.
Hmm. And it could be money that you spend up front, or it could be time that you spend up front and to educate yourself, or it could be time and money that you lose at the end because you didn't educate yourself.
Mm.
So it's going to be costly at the beginning
Yep.
or at the end. And I'll tell you what, if you wait till the end, it's going to be a lot more costly.
Tends to be. Compounding
Mhm.
works both ways.
And painful. So, sorry.
All right. Our next one, freedom and education.
Freedom.
How does freedom affect our education or our schooling?
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Well, it's funny. I was uh I was just watching, I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw our cousin Cassandra had a post on why she homeschools.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest reasons why she said she homeschools is because of freedom. They have the freedom to travel. They have the freedom to teach their own curriculum because of the state that they live in, where they can do that. They have the freedom to be guided by where the children's interests lie. Because trust me, as an educator, I know if you want, and a father, and I'm sure anybody else who's got kids, if you want to keep your kids' attention, find what interests them. If you can tweak that and turn that into a learning moment, an educational moment, man, oh man, it's like the lightning goes off, and they're just they're enthralled and they're learning without even knowing it. I love that. That's one of my favorite times. But yeah, if you can embrace that, which you can't do in school, you can't get that in school. And so when I do work with kids, which is rarely, but even when I work with adults, I try to focus on where people's interests lie. Um, and so that has a fun aspect to it, because if we're going to go with the F for fun, there's the fun in education. But
I do, yeah. And
um,
we have to add the fun. I think from the freedom perspective, it is it's an essential, because if we don't have some level of freedom, certainly freedom of speech, freedom of information, freedom to as learn the important information that's there. If information is withheld, if information is censored or blocked or pushed off,
yeah.
that there's definitely danger there. My shortly after we moved here, we met a couple, and the wife was from China, had grown up there,
Wow.
has become very conservative since then. But we started talking about events from the news that I remembered back in the 80s about China.
Hmm.
She had
Hmm.
no idea what we're talking about,
Yeah. Oh
because
man.
the
Hmm.
information wasn't provided for their culture. And you go
Yeah.
back, our country has done some of the same thing, where there's a lot of things people are ignorant about or they're uneducated about. Fine, go
But
learn those things.
the information is not covered up with by threat of violence. The information is not completely shut out. I mean, trust
Hopefully,
me,
not
I
usually.
have. Well, hopefully, yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe it is. I mean, but I had a student in Beijing, in the lion's den there, who was appalled and shocked when I showed him pictures of the events in Tiananmen Square.
Hmm.
I mean, pictures that were. I mean, he couldn't believe it. He said, "Oh yeah, I heard about. Oh, I didn't hear about that." And he
Yeah,
saw the pictures, and it was brutal. It was gruesome, and that was a very emotional time for him to see that.
yeah. So
Yeah,
freedom of
having that
information
conversation.
obviously important, because you can't get
Mhm.
an education if information is curated heavily
Yeah, curated.
or
Nice.
censored.
He's curated heavily.
I,
Yeah.
I think that goes on the education side from a responsibility perspective to say, what I always talk about with news, for instance, is go to original sources
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
much as you can, or
Hmm.
seek out multiple stories from different types of sources on the same idea and the same topics,
Yeah.
because regardless of where you're at, there's going to be something that gets missed, which makes you less
Always.
capable of making quality decisions about
Mhm.
anything. So
Yeah.
that would be my take.
So yeah, freedom of information is important. But yeah, also have fun when you're learning. Find
Have
the
fun.
fun. And no,
Fun.
I'm serious. This is serious, man. It's so serious. Have fun, man. No. Oh, come on. It was an oxymoron. It was an oxymoron. It was trying to be seriously fun.
Seriously
Serious
fun.
fun.
Oxymorons.
Seriously
Yes.
fun. Oxymoron. Come on. English major. Come on. Uh,
As Sylvester Stallone said in Oscar, "You're an ox and a moron."
exactly right. Hey.
All right. Well, there's our 5 F's, the 5 arenas of life, and they do all touch education in some way. Because if you're working to better improve yourself in each of the F's, in each of the
Mm.
arenas, you become a more educated person. You become what they used to call a Renaissance man,
Yeah. And nowadays
which
they
is
just call
always
you educated.
it's always been one of my goals to be the Renaissance man.
Oh,
All right,
I always want to be educated.
my
All
turn,
right.
brother.
All right. Your turn.
All right, you know what? I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to start over.
Oh, okay.
Redo on the commercial
Redo on
because
the commercial.
we're talking about Mark Twain, and Mark Twain is also famous for saying,
Oh, not that. He wasn't famous for
not
saying
that.
that.
He wasn't famous for saying that. No, he wasn't. He was famous for saying, the man who does not read books has no advantage over the man who can't read them. And if that doesn't make you feel a little bit disadvantaged because you're not reading as much as you think you should be, then consider this your official dad guilt trip. Because what he was saying is this: if you're not reading, you might as well be illiterate. So maybe you're not one of those guys who really likes fiction. Maybe you say, I only like the nonfiction, but then you go binge watch Reacher or The Terminal List. I can't say I blame you, but have I got a series for you? Uncivil Liberties. This is a series of short action thrillers like The Terminal List, set in a 2026 future where cancel culture has gotten even worse. It's written by my exceptionally reclusive friend John Beam, and these are the first books that my company published that I didn't personally write. So, they're just as exciting as the stuff on TV, but they don't have all the woke stuff from Hollywood, and you can read each installment in about an hour. Plus, if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read them all as part of your subscription for free. Get started with the first book at called Smear Campaign, and the link is books2read.com/smear. That's books, the number 2read.com/SMEAR.
Just like that. Oh, not like
Just
that.
like that.
Just like that. Just like that. All right. I'm still getting used to this slide thing. Yeah. Okay.
I know. We'll figure it out at some point. Whee!
Hooey.
All
Oh,
right,
here
we're
we
moving to
go.
our last section here,
My
the dog vomit
favorite.
section.
My favorite. The section on the vomit of the dog.
These
That
are
sounds bad.
things that sound really good, but once you've digested them a little bit, they make you want to go. Ugh. And we're just asking that you don't go back to that. You get some real wisdom in here. And so my favorite is one we heard, or at least I heard a lot in elementary school, which was, you can be anything you want to be. So
Anything?
that's what I
They told
heard.
you that in elementary school? Man, oh man. You know, I don't remember hearing you can be anything when I was in elementary school. I did hear it later on in life, but I do remember hearing you can do anything you want to do. Big difference there between those two. Be and do.
I wonder which one came first, because
And not the chicken or the egg.
let's get down to reality.
Mhm.
Neither
Well,
one is flat out true.
that is
They're
true.
both,
Neither
at
one of these
best-
is flat out true.
At best, they're half truths. There's actually a bunch of these memes of a guy from The Office. I don't know who the people are in The Office, but the guy from The Office
Never
who's
saw.
just a jerk. And he's got the glasses, and it's different variations of, you can be anything you want to be. False. You cannot, for instance, be a toaster. You know, so it's
But yeah, you can't be a
there you go.
toaster. You can't,
You can't
What?
be a unicorn, even though you might dress up as one.
Yeah. And it's our responsibility, as human beings, as men, to be honest with ourselves first, and then with our wives and our families, Because I think the biggest problem here is the perpetuation of this myth, this lie. It is a lie. I'm not gonna air quote that. It's a flat out lie. You can't be anything you want to be anymore. I hate to say it, but I can never be a mom, which is a shame because I think that's the coolest job in the world. But I can never be a mom.
Yeah,
Now
it's
I
good.
can, yeah. Well,
Okay.
I don't know. Dad's pretty darn cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Being a
Being a
dad's
dad
pretty
is,
fun.
is the best
I
job
don't
I've ever had. So, um, you can't be it, but at the same time, so like the thing I heard all the time was you can do anything you want as long as you set your mind to it.
Hmm.
To which I think that's fairly motivational. It's inspirational. You can do anything you want, yeah. But at the same time, I mean, again, you can't do anything you want because
You
if I want to
cannot
have
jump to the moon.
no, you can't. Not yet. We can
Even
figure
if
that
you
one out.
set your
We can
mind
probably
to it.
figure it out.
That's why I say
No, we
these are
probably could figure
these
that
are
one out.
half
Probably.
truths.
Ask
And
Elon
I'm
Musk.
saying you
I'm kidding.
will just call the rocket legs and say you jumped to the moon. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's why I say they're half truths. Or there is a touch of truth in that you can say in certain contexts, like occupationally, in a free country, you can do anything you want to. You can be any job title that you set your mind to in a
Sure.
free
Yeah.
country.
In that
So there are
context, in a
there
free
are
country.
ways
Hmm.
in a particular context. These memes are lacking context. That's the problem here.
Yeah,
Fact check, lacking context.
yeah. Fact check. I mean, there's so many things in the world that lack context. My gosh, I just read an article about uh, best buy. No, was it best before dates on
Oh,
on things in the grocery store? And I
those
and I
have been
was just
going
like,
around a lot lately.
yeah, but now all of a sudden, people are certain grocery stores in the article were getting rid of it in order to reduce food waste. And I'm like, wait a minute, didn't they start that program in order to increase food waste so that people would buy more food? Now they want people to buy less. Something tells me, um,
Getting
not
back to
into something good.
this.
Yeah. Anyway,
So,
it's
okay.
all about
So
context. My point was, it's all
it
about
is about
context.
context. It is about
Mhm.
context. So, yeah, in certain areas, this can be aspirational, and that can be a good thing. If somebody's looking at job prospects, yeah, most jobs most people can do. There might be, in some cases, certain limitations for a particular individual. Like, I am not going to
Strength.
be an NBA star. I am too
Yeah. Yeah.
short,
Exactly.
and
No, actually, there are a lot of
I can't shoot
limitations that
for nothing. But there's
yeah
a lot of
there's
occupations
a
that's
lot of
true for.
limitations that yeah, but I mean, you need to know yourself and know what your limitations are, and because there are certain limitations that are just they just are what they are. I mean, the problem with things like this is that the more and more people who hear about this kind of quote, thank you Freddie Mercury. I love his music, but come on, musicians should just never mind. But people who hear these kind of quotes and they're raised with this kind of stuff, then they go and they create they create situations like, well, I think anyone who wants to be a firefighter should just be allowed to be a firefighter. And you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. There are requirements for being a firefighter. No, there shouldn't be any requirements. And so they lower the standard. They do the same thing for the military, the police, everything like that.
Wow. And yet there are still always going to be hard standards for certain jobs. If like for instance, there if you go look at jobs for law enforcement, there's limits on age and physical ability. You can't get around it.
Have you seen the videos of the IRS agents going through the training? You tell me that guy in the wheelchair rolling in with this little hover round, and the freaking gun is gonna come in there and yeah, for stop. There's
Yeah.
limits, bruh. There's no
That's
limits. You
again.
can really truly be anything you want to be in this
Yeah.
fantasy world that we live in.
And that's unfortunate that
Mhm.
they would endanger someone like who's physically in a
Mhm.
wheelchair by
Mhm.
putting them into violent altercations.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
this is the type of thing. I think we get this often from the people who become the very top levels of any
Stupidity?
endeavor. No. You get this from people who end up like Authority of Inquiry being at the top levels of fame and fortune. It's easier to believe that you really can turn yourself into anything when you've made it.
That's right.
And I think this Clint Eastwood version here is much more down to earth and much more in line with reality. Clint Eastwood said, "A man's got to know his limitations."
That's right.
Absolutely. And I think a woman does too. And
Thank you.
it
Thank you for
is
you being the one to
something
say it. Not me.
a person, every person.
No, I agree.
It's
I
good
agree.
for
Yeah,
all of
I
us.
mean,
It's good for all of
yeah,
us when we get outside of
you should know your limitations.
yeah, and those. Now, I think that there's I don't know. There's a double-edged mind game that this kind of idea plays with you, in that if you haven't made it and you're not making what you want, you think you want, then this whole idea of you can be anything you want to be and yet you haven't made it, it creates a lot of anxiety and pressure and stress and depression and all those kinds of, it has that potential to create those feelings within someone because they're believing something that goes against reality. And I think a lot of our challenges these days are challenges with reality, challenges with understanding. But if you know your limitations, then you can find your spot and you can actually excel and reach the top in your area, in your field, or in your local community to have what really is a meaningful life. If that's what we're going for, being anything is not meaningful.
Right. It comes from being, it starts with being honest. Being honest is what it boils down to. You be honest with yourself, know your limitations, be honest with yourself, and then be honest with the community, with the world at large. And that's where we get to the solutions. Okay. Not everyone can be anything. You can't. Not all of us can be anything. I can't be a mom. You can't be a gopher. I mean, it's not going to happen. Man. Can't be an Apache helicopter.
I'm good at getting stuff.
That's true. I guess you could be a gopher, not in the fuzzy little.
My dog wouldn't have it.
But anyway. You want to find the solutions to problems. It starts with being honest with the problems and being honest with yourself and then approaching it from that angle. Yeah. Because otherwise, living in a fantasy world is not going to do it. You know. Yeah. And the silver fox is dropping bombs over here. Like,
hey. Dropping bombs.
That's a good question, though. Man. It is a good question. It is a really good question. You didn't show it very long.
Education, man. Just
I'm educated, man. I'm educated. Hey, if people went to school, if they didn't go to school, this would not be a question on the minds of so many people. If they didn't go to school, it might not be an issue because it's kind of like common sense. That's why I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it right there. I'm not returning to that vomit anymore.
All right. Oh, man.
Also.
There we go. Live in reality. Don't know your limits, but don't over accentuate them. Same thing with your abilities. Know them.
Yeah.
Don't overestimate them. Don't underestimate them. Just know them.
Yeah.
And you can avoid this.
That's right.
Okay. I think we are about wrapped up here with all our stuff.
Unwrapped.
So we are. Wait, what? We're unwrapped?
I'm not. I said I'm wrapped. I'm totally wrapped.
You're wrapped. You're wrapped.
As
one of my mentors
in the morning.
says,
I'm wrapped.
As one of my mentors says, I'm out of soap.
I have no idea what that means.
I
can't wash any more feet.
You can't wash anything else. All right. So, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this hour-long conversation about education and schooling and all kinds of things. Let's get rid of that banner real quick. There we go.
I hope you feel much more educated after this exciting experience.
Or at least you have some ideas about where to go for education and such.
Yeah. Google is not one of them.
You can. It's
no,
at
I'm
least
kidding.
a start.
I'm kidding. It's a start. It's a start. You couldn't find us without you anyway. All right.
All right.
Hey, we're live.
Oh, you're gonna. Hey, go ahead.
Oh, you're gonna do it. You're gonna. I was trying to rush us along here, man.
We're over the hour. We got to cut it off now.
Oh dear Lord. All right, we're live every other Wednesday. That's Mountain Time Wednesday. It's Thursday morning in Korea. Try to behave for the next 2 weeks, or else you're grounded.
This has been Dad Save the Internet, the first show on the internet with two dads trying to save the internet by getting back to the basics of common sense and wisdom. And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe. Again, I hear if you press that subscribe button, you get free cookies. Leave a comment, please, or
I thought we were talking about living in reality. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Yeah, leave a comment, guys.
They're internet cookies. They live on your computer. It's a joke.
Oh, those virtual cookies, man. Dang it.
Virtual cookies. All right. You can also find Dad Save the Internet on Instagram, Facebook, and we will soon have a community with content on locals.
Yes, I'm looking forward to locals. I like locals. Locals are cool, man.
This is Brandon signing off.
And this is Dennis. Take it easy.